morning and welcome to Podcast Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Monday edition of the program. We got the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier, join us about 8:15, 8:20 on the program. But before that, we're going to kick off the program with my buddy Joe Cowart from 1010XL over in Jacksonville, also part of the International PGA Tour broadcast crew. Joe, welcome to the program. How are you, buddy?
Good morning, Shane. It's a beautiful Monday. I wish we had more sports, but still, beautiful day. Welcome.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, think about it. If everything was normal, we'd be having the national championship game in basketball tonight. And I believe, I want to say the Masters would be starting, Thursday? Or is that next week?
Yeah. This coming week, I think it was the last real sports that I saw, and I'm sure you did as well, was the opening round of the Players Thursday, which was, we're going back to, I think, March 12th.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you're part of the PGA Tour broadcast that people hear. In my personal opinion, Joe, and I know we don't really know when sports are going to start back, but, golf courses are still open when, pretty much your entire cities, states are shut down because it's a way you can get outdoors. You can have your own cart. You can walk, whatever. You don't have to touch the flag sticks anymore. Do you think the PGA Tour could possibly be the first professional sports group to go back to competing?
I think it's a great idea because everything you just said is true. It's not like, the NBA, they're dying to get their regular season finished and get the postseason started. And we all know how big that would be. But you're right, full contact, bodies banging against bodies. And in the game of golf, you got to play your own ball. And there's not one football, one basketball, one baseball. There's, you play it down, you play your own. And like you said, the new rule does not tell you that you have to pull the flag out. So really, you could basically be a one-man band going out there. Now, of course, you got your caddy, and who knows, you could probably come up with something as far as wiping everything down with every shot, which is basically what a caddy already does. And so you're talking about a game that could give the fans out there just something to gravitate to hold on to, some normalcy to where you could get back. And I know it killed Jay Monahan, commissioner of the PGA Tour, to make that decision going back March 13th that they were going to have to cancel the Players Championship, and then of course the rest of the PGA Tour for a couple of months. So heck yeah, man, I'm with you. Bring it on.
I mean, you're around these PGA Tour players a lot. Now, obviously, they feed off the crowds at their different events, but majority of them played college golf, junior golf, and you're out there with basically your family and friends watching you. So obviously it wouldn't be the same atmosphere, but at least they still would be competing. And you don't think they would have an issue with no fans there at this time, right?
No, I don't think so. I think anything we're talking about, I don't want to look ahead and forecast doom for college football and say we're not going to have it, but we may have it where you're going to have less fans that are there. And so I think the tour, you can consider TPC Sawgrass and the Players huge crowds. They would have allowed something in the neighborhood of maybe 200,000 people in over the course of the week. If you go to another PGA Tour event that's not nearly as popular, there aren't that many people there anyway, and people are just kind of walking around and checking stuff out. So I do think it's kind of a good sport to reintroduce and take not take a chance, but take a shot at giving something back to the fans without putting anybody in danger. When the Players came off the golf course on Thursday, they were looking around going, this is kind of weird. Should we be worried about ourselves? Well, a month has passed, and so they probably, if there were any concerns, they've learned a hell of a lot more about it. They might have even gotten tested, who knows? But I do think that they could operate as individuals and go out there and put on a show, and I think people would be tuning in left and right.
We're speaking with Joe Cowart on the Titan MRI Hotline. He's the host of XL Prime Time over in Jackson on 1010XL, weekdays noon to 3. You can follow him on Twitter at 1010XL Joe C. Joe, obviously, Tony Baselli, maybe one of the greatest Jaguars of all time. We know he had a battle with the coronavirus. He's very close to you guys there at 1010XL. Have you been able to speak with him or I've read some of the stories. I mean, it was kind of a scary situation.
Yeah, very scary, and I think it hits close to home when you find out somebody that you know that you were around had was diagnosed with the coronavirus. Now, everything we can tell, Leon seriously does the show with us. So Leon was he's a teammate, bookmate, tackles back in the late '90s with Tony, and so he was one of the first guys that let us know. Now we were all kind of around each other a little bit early week at the Players, and lo and behold, he comes down with the diagnosis, and we're going back. I want to say last Thursday, something like that that we were aware of it, and it scares the heck out of you. You're talking about a big man, healthy man, a guy that's active. He's out doing a lot of stuff, and so he came on Jaguars happy hour last Thursday night. So I should have said it a couple, you know the timeline. I've lost track of time. But anyway, maybe 3 weeks ago when we found out. But anyway, he was on the radio last Thursday. And I tell you what, Shane, voice was still cracking, still a little bit apprehensive just about everything as far as what he was going to be able to do next. And so it shakes you a little bit. But they caught it fairly early with him, and he was able to come through it. He said the doctors were incredible, nurses, same thing. But yeah, it definitely kind of wakes you up a little bit.
Well, let's talk a little about the Jaguars. They trade Nick Foles away to the Chicago Bears. I guess they're handing over the keys to Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, they're going to give it to 15 and see what he can do. I mean, this is a guy who's, he's a great story. He's fun. He's a guy that's got everything that you want in terms of coolness and storylines. The aviators, the bandana, the George, the whole deal. And he's a guy that, I'm not going to draw a comparison because I don't know if you could pull off the Fu Manchu, but when Shane Matthews came from the bottom of the depth chart and rose up, I'm sure you can identify with us. You took off, and you were a star for Florida. And Gardner Minshew in the 6th round flung into the spotlight game 1 last year, and for the ride, even though they didn't win a whole hell of a lot, for the ride it was as exciting as it could be for the Jaguar fan. And so he gets a chance. Nick Foles, they spent a lot of money on him. They were trying to get the franchise right. It didn't work out. He may have been brought back into the starting lineup too early, wasn't completely healed from a broken collarbone, and it was just a disaster. And so I still think that Nick Foles could have competed for the job, but I feel like they wanted to get $22 million off the books as soon as possible and really give Gardner a chance, at least for this year. He's going to get a shot to see what he can do.
Free agency, the moves that they've made. I mean, I don't follow the NFL like I used to, but the only pretty much free agent signing that I recognized was Tyler Eifert, the tight end. Are you happy with what they've done in free agency so far?
No, they really didn't do a whole hell of a lot, but they did enough to at least fill some spots. So I would go Tyler Eifert, tight end, who's been banged up as much as he's been healthy, and Joe Schobert, who's not necessarily a big name, but he's a middle linebacker that they signed from Cleveland. That's a tackling machine, Pro Bowler, led the league in tackles. So he's a guy that can man the middle, and then they will move Miles Jack, who was supposed to be a superstar when they drafted him. He's had some really big moments, but he also was pretty average last year before getting hurt. So put Schobert in the middle, move Miles Jack out to his natural position, an outside linebacker, and then all they really did other than that, Shane, is just kind of fill in the blank. So I think they're looking at a football team that's going to be as competitive as they can be, and then they're going to be picking high in the draft again.
So when you look at the draft, I mean, it's going to be new for everyone. I guess they're all going to do it from the Jacksonville area via Zoom, Skype, whatever it possibly may be.
Yeah.
Tell us about what you know about that and who the Jaguars, what positions they may be looking for in the draft.
Well, we've been doing, I can't tell you how many mock drafts and projections on what this team's going to do and what every other team's going to do. And everyone's debating what's going to happen with Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama. He's kind of like the wild card in all of this. But, it's going to be a weird scene. There aren't going to be these huge draft players traveling to the site and Roger Goodell giving big bear hugs to guys and all that stuff. It's just going to be gone. It's going to be real antiseptic laboratory feeling whenever they make the announcement. They're going to have the Zoom set up, like you said, where I would think a lot of the players selected in the first round are going to have their immediate family around them. They're going to have cameras set up inside their homes. You're going to have war rooms, which we used to see with a bunch of guys in there making the decision, really trimmed down to 4, 5, 6 guys. And then the Jaguars are going to look, I would think, number one at the defensive tackle spot. Derek Brown's been talked about a bunch. Gator fans certainly know who we're talking about there. Big tackle inside for Auburn. So he's one of the guys that they're going to target. And then maybe C.J. Henderson, somebody like that. Jacksonville gets to pick twice in the first round. They got the number 9 selection and the 20th selection. So a Gator could pop on the board with that 20th pick overall.
When you, I was talking about this with someone the other day. I can't remember who it was on my podcast, because the draft is totally different now. There's no pro days for these college athletes. Now some of these juniors that came out may be questioning their decision because they can't go visits with the coaches and things of that nature. Personally, I think now it's going to come down to turn on the tape. How good of a football player are you? That's pretty much how they're going to have to evaluate them, since they can't sit down and meet with them and see how fast they can run, how much more they can bench press. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for the league?
I always laugh and try and figure out whether, coaches, they always make everything more important than maybe it is. And they're wanting to work 16, 18 hours a day, that type of stuff. Excuse me, sleep at the office and all that. But so as important as they made everything, we're going to find out whether or not they can do minimal work and still get some of the same results. And as well as I do, basically a football player should be drafted off of his tape, right? That's what he should be viewed as in terms of his potential. The overkill takes place in the off season when they want to do all the workouts and do the over analysis. And next thing you know, you've got guys flying all over the place and everyone's trying to get that edge. And I totally get that. I totally get it. But at the same time, Derek Brown, as an example, or C.J. Henderson should be judged off what they did in uniform, in pads, for their last year playing college ball. And so I think that's basically what it comes down to. That's the guy you're going to get based on his play. And there are certain things I'm sure that they can figure out from these pro days and off-season workouts that will probably maybe tip the scales one way or the other. But still, it comes down to, are you a ball player or not? And I think maybe when it's all said and done, coaches are probably going to figure out, and scouts, that they can get their work in and go make a decision and not sit there and just pour over it, which is what about 5 or 6 months of off season will make you do.
We're speaking with Joe Cowart. Joe, before we let you go here, we have a play of the day each day, but it's not a play of the day anymore. It's this day in sports, and it's brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Is your whole family stuck at home and tracking in mud more than usual? Take your rugs to Area Rug Masters for a BOGO rug cleaning when you mention the code Shane. Call 352-448-5999. This day in sports, Joe, in 1958, the 22nd edition of the U.S. Masters, Arnold Palmer wins his first of his 4 Masters titles, one stroke ahead of Doug Ford and Fred Hawkins. Were you on that call? The PGA Tour broadcast?
No, I would love to have been. I don't want to be that old, but I would love to have been around when Arnie was just getting going. Man, that is so cool when you hear it. And you can go back. Now, Arnie didn't win as many majors as maybe people think, but he's still regarded as the greatest. He's the king. And he did so much for the game, man. He brought entertainers, athletes, politics, everybody to the game of golf, it seems like.
No doubt about it. Before we let you go, let's talk a little college football. Your thoughts. I read somewhere last night, I don't know if it was on Twitter or something, about the University of Oklahoma are not going to allow any kind of athletes to do anything now until the July 31st, which that concerns me because that is really, really late. Your thoughts on where the college football games, will they be played this year or not?
We've talked to a couple of national guys over the last week. We work with Matt Hayes, national college football writer for the Bleacher Report, talked to Brett McMurphy and Dennis Dodd. Both of those guys have been covering it for a long time. And, I feel like we're going to play, but I feel like the doctors are working tirelessly. I'm told that labs are working around the clock, whereas they've never worked this much to try and learn about a vaccine. And so I feel like we're going to get closer and closer and closer to where we'll be able to do it. But, the one thing I was talking about in the NFL where coaches and maybe scouts work overtime, and it's not as important as maybe they think. Hell, for the athlete that needs to get to the training table and get to the weight room, this heck of a lot better than I do. They've got to get integrated into the college scene, get to the table, get to the playbook, get to the film room, and get working out. And so I think that's real important. And I would think if you got to the end of July, maybe even mid-July, and you kind of said, hey, okay, let's set Aug 1 as our start date and let's play some ball, maybe by September 1, maybe you push the schedule back 1 week. I think that's possible. I think that's where I'd like to see it land.
Yeah, hope so. Did you see where a lot of people were complaining about Alabama, how they gave all their players these Apple Watches so they could track everything they're doing?
Nick is always going to gain an upper hand somehow, some way, and he is going to figure it out, and we'll figure out whether someone, right now, I don't blame any coach for wanting to have some contact with his player,
No doubt about it. Well, Joe, we appreciate you taking your time. Again, this is Joe Cowart from 1010XL. His host of his program, XL Primetime, weekdays noon to 3 over there in Jax. Hey, man, we appreciate it. Stay safe to you and your family.
All right, you too, Shane. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, that's Joe Cowart. We're going to take a time out here on the Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. When we come back, we'll be joined by the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Coldstone Creamery, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown!
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We want to thank Joe Cowart from over in Jacksonville, 1010XL. Join us earlier in the program. Now we're going to go to the Titan MRI hotline, and we're joined by Coach Steve Spurrier. If you have a text for Coach Spurrier, you can send it on the Titan MRI text line, 352-353-7465, or you can shoot us a message on Facebook Live, which is brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. Coach, how you doing?
Oh, hey, Shane. I was just thinking it was 30 years ago. I got hired at Florida, and there was a redshirt sophomore quarterback who was about, 15 on the depth chart when I got here?
Somewhere down there.
And within 1 year of 1990, he was the SEC Player of the Year. So it's good to be on with you, my man.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining us. Crazy times right now. But, Coach, let's just kind of reminisce. Your 12 years here as the head coach at Florida. You won 7 SEC titles. Is there one that stands out the most to you out of those 7?
Yeah, Shane, I tell you what, before we start talking football, I want to just encourage all the Gators and everybody out there to be safe. Be safe.
Yeah.
Don't get in. If there's a bunch of people gathered somewhere, don't be around them. And I know I got to keep telling myself, don't visit places and stay to yourself and this, that, and the other. But we're all in this thing together, as we all know, so let's all do our part. And hopefully football season will be here without a glitch in it, and we can get going with college football this year, hopefully. Yeah, looking back, Shane, people ask me occasionally, of those 7 SECs, which one's the best? It's got to be the first one. When you win that first one, then that sort of clears the path, the sort of the uncertainty. As you know, when we got here 30 years ago, Florida had 0 SEC championships. I know we had that one in 84, and a lot of people say the one in 84 and the one in 90 were similar. And I say the only difference was in 90, the year that we won it but did not get recognized, is that we had no player, no coach, nobody had any violations against them. They went back 4 years earlier, and they had really was a phony violation on Jarvis Williams from Palatka. And Galen Hall did not pay his child support payment. We found out later, maybe one of the people in Palatka, I think one of the car dealers that had a prior relationship, knew Jarvis growing up and helped him out and so forth, had paid it. But that was the only thing on that team. And for some reason, the only penalty he got was no bowl game. And because we couldn't go to a bowl game, we're ineligible for the championship because the Sugar Bowl got the SEC champ. So that's how they determined it. But they did it in mid-season. And you were right there, Shane. And so I remember telling the team, we're ineligible to be called champs. But I'll tell you one thing. If we win this thing, I'll always consider this team the first to ever win the SEC here at Florida. And I said, you guys know we're going to win a bunch of these, don't you? And they sort of looked at me like, yeah, we're going to win a bunch of them, so we might as well be the first. And they regrouped, and we had a lot of seniors on that team, Shane, Jerry Odom, and Fain, and Huey Richardson, Mark Murray, Bromley, offensive lineman. And those guys, they really did something to clear the air. And once you win that first one, then the next ones are much more easier. There was no there was nothing that could hold us back. We mentally believed we were good enough and went and did it. So I really love that 1990 team. Of course, I love all of them. And but winning that first one, I think, was huge in paving the way for the rest of them to come.
You know, Coach, I when I speak to Gator clubs and stuff, they always ask me, like, what's my favorite games, things of that nature. And I wouldn't say it was my favorite game, but I think maybe the most important game in Florida football history may have been your second game on the road at Alabama. You know, with all the history that Alabama had, Florida always had good teams, but struggled to win championships because they didn't win a lot of games on the road. And I remember you emphasizing to us, if we wanted to be SEC champions, we're going to have to find ways to win games on the road. And we went into Tuscaloosa, sputtered around, but found a way to win that game.
Yeah, that was a very interesting game in the fact that we did not really play all of our best offensively. You know, we were shut out at halftime, 10-0. And it's a hot day. They had AstroTurf way back in 1990 at Alabama. And I remember Dr. Pete Indelicado got his IV. You know, we were IVing guys at halftime. I'd never seen that before, but it gave us a little extra juice, I guess, for the second half. And, of course, everybody does that nowadays. But, yeah, we were down 10-0, and we got one drive there. I remember you hit Terrence Barber on a touchdown. And then hit the long pass coming out of the end zone to Ernie Mills to get us out of a hole. But Will White had the game of his life. 3 interceptions at free safety back there. And we hung in there and made some things happen. And then we block a punt. I think Jerry Odom and was it Fain that fell on it or Odom fell on it? Which one?
I think Fain fell on it.
Yeah, and Odom, he got through there and blocked it for a touchdown. So we held on and won 17-13. I know we had to make a couple first downs right at the end of the game to put it away. And I remember Trey Everett caught a pass and ran out of bounds down. And I was yelling at him, man, you got to stay in bounds. There's a minute left, and we're trying to run this clock out. He said, Coach, that's the first time anybody ever told me about running out of bounds to stop the clock. So anyway, we did find a way to do it. But here was the interesting thing, Shane. Bill King, a local writer here at the Gainesville Sun, the next day he wrote this right here. He said this was an amazing, unbelievable game. Because let me tell you what happened yesterday in Tuscaloosa. He said the Florida Gators played like Alabama, and Alabama played like the old Florida Gators. In other words, Alabama found a way to lose it, getting the punt block. And I'd be dang, the Gators somehow or another found a way to win it when we really didn't have our best stuff. But Alabama's pretty good. They always have been, and it looks like they always are going to be just about. But we were very fortunate to beat them. Of course, that one, and then the 35-0 game the next year was really a big bonus for us as far as, I should say, a boost, I guess. Because then all of a sudden people said, man, them Gators are pretty good. And, you know, the Art of War, Sun Tzu, one of his statements is strive for big wins, decisive wins. if you could beat Alabama 35-0, that's better than 17-7, because it just sends the message out there. These guys are pretty good, and I think it helps you going into the next opponent, because you put a little fear in them when you can score like that and beat a team like Alabama. Now, obviously, after we beat Alabama at 35-0, they won like 19 or 22 in a row, and of course won the SEC the next year and the national championship the next year.
Yeah, we're speaking with Coach Steve Spurrier on the Titan MRI hotline from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We got a text here on the Titan MRI text line. And, Coach, it's from Matt from Atlanta. He wants to know, Coach, are you staying in Gainesville or at the beach, and what are you doing to keep yourself busy?
Yeah, we're going back and forth a little bit. I'm actually in Gainesville now. Came back to do some stuff, stay here 2 or 3 days, maybe drive over there. It's a straight drive. You never get on the interstate or anything. So it's pretty convenient to go an hour and a half and so forth. But just trying to stay sheltered in place mostly. I have played a little golf. One of the courses there, Marsh Creek, was open at St. Augustine Beach. Bobby Stoops is down there right now. We actually played golf a couple of times last week. And they got it set up where you do not talk to anyone. The golf cart's there. You put your bag on the cart. You go play golf, come back, put your bag in your car, and then drive the golf cart up to where they keep them there. So it's, I think, as safe a way as you can do it to play golf. So we may do that a little bit more next week and so forth.
Coach, when you look at your career, I believe you have the most wins against the Georgia Bulldogs. I remember when you took the job, that was one team you emphasized that we have to beat. Talk a little bit about how you enjoyed beating the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, Shane, historically, 30 years ago, now we're going 30 years ago, historically, anytime the SEC championship was on the line and Florida plays Georgia toward the end of the year there, Georgia had always won, always, 100%. And Florida would get knocked out of the championship, and then Georgia would win when they had to win. It's just the team we had to beat. Then, obviously, when we went to divisions in the championship game in '92, then, we got to beat Georgia to win the division, but we had to beat Alabama usually to win the SEC. So, historically, Florida did not play Alabama much. Alabama didn't play Georgia much. For whatever reasons those are, who knows? But anyway, the Georgia Bulldogs had been a thorn in the side of the Gators. We all know that, and currently they are again. I think they've beaten us 3 in a row now, something like that. So that's the team we got to beat to win the division, and then after that, probably Alabama. Usually Alabama for the championship, although LSU obviously did it all last year. But, we need to beat those guys. And here was the good part. We had a lot better team than they did those first couple of years. And we started beating them pretty good, as you know, 38-7 and 41-13, I think, for the first couple of years. So that helped. That helped when you can beat your nemesis by a pretty good score to get the streak started. So that was a big reason we were able to win SECs, of course, was beating Georgia. Coach Ellison, who was our inspirational coach. I tell you, it's a shame. Gene Ellison never got a chance to be a head coach. He would have been one of the greatest ever. He might have been next to Bear Bryant as a head coach because he was a motivator. He could inspire his players. As a defensive coordinator, 64, I think we were number 1 in the nation in defense. Since we didn't win the SEC, people, they don't know those facts. But, man, we put together some good defenses. If we'd been a little smarter back in the 60s and sort of had our goals in line with winning championships, I think we could have won some back then. We really had some outstanding players and coaches at Florida back in the 60s.
We got a Facebook Live question here for you, Coach, brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. It comes from Rick. He says, Tom Dempsey just passed away with the coronavirus. Did you ever play with him?
Dempsey was with the LA Rams back in '75, a game that one of the few I got to play against the Rams in my 9 years at the 49ers. But the Rams sort of owned us back in those days. In fact, my 9 years out there in 18 games, we won 2. We were 2-16 against the LA Rams. That's how good they were. or maybe how bad we were. I don't know. But anyway, I got a chance to play against them. I sort of asked our coach, let me play against them. We got nothing to lose. So he conceded and let me play. Anyway, Tom Dempsey was their kicker, and they were attempting a field goal. And our defensive back, Ralph McGill, came around the edge, and Dempsey hit him with his, he had that club shoe because he only had a half a foot. I think he was born that way with it. And that club hit Ralph McGill right in the temple. And for a minute, we thought he'd killed him, but he was completely knocked out. And they drove that little ambulance cart out on the field and put him away. And they'd actually called roughing the kicker on our guy, Ralph McGill. So they went down and scored a touchdown, and Dempsey missed the extra point. I think he thought maybe he had killed somebody, and he was a little shaken about it. And he missed the extra point. So we were down 23-21. Somehow or another, we put a little flimsy drive together with about a minute left, and our kicker, Steve Mickemeyer, kicked a 56-yard field goal. So we beat the Rams 24-23. And Tom Dempsey, Dempsey was the kicker there. But he kicked that 63-yarder when he was with the Saints that held up for a long time. I'm not sure what the record is now, but that was the biggest kick in history at that time.
We're speaking with Coach Steve Spurrier on the Titan MR hotline. We got a text here on the Titan MR text line. John from Apopka says, Coach, how did you get into coaching, and did you always want to be a football coach?
I was very fortunate to get into coaching. No, I did not always want to be a football coach. Back in the 60s or 70s, there's not a lot of glamour in being a football coach, to tell you the truth. There was not it just seems like these guys worked all day and night, and they did not make much money at all back in those days. But it was just not something you planned on doing. And then all of a sudden, after 10 years in the NFL, I had to get a job. They don't pay pro guys back then like they do now. These guys nowadays, they don't do much of anything after 8 or 9 years in the NFL because they made so much money. But anyway, I had to get a job, and I got in touch with Coach Dickey here at Florida, and he hired me as a quarterback coach for the 78 season. Unfortunately, we didn't win enough games. I had Johnny Brantley as a quarterback who played pretty doggone well. That's John Brantley's dad. That later, of course, Johnny Brantley Jr. played for the Gators back when Urban was here. So anyway, we all got fired. Charlie Pell came in, didn't keep me, and I was out for a month and a half. And the quarterback coach at Georgia Tech left to take another job, and Pepper Rogers called me and said, you still want to coach? And I said, yes, sir. So I got a chance to stay alive at Georgia Tech, and we didn't win enough games. And then the biggest break, I guess, was I got a chance to go to Duke University my third year and got to go as the offensive coordinator. And the head coach, I asked the head coach, Red Wilson, who hired me, wonderful man. He's still alive. He's 94. Talked to him last week. I asked him, I said, is there a terminology? Is there a numbering system? Is there a playbook you want me to go from? He said, no, I got nothing. You make it up and call it whatever you want to. And I said, this is too good to be true. So we started making up the offense at Duke University back in the early 80s. And our second and third year, we actually had winning seasons, went 6-5 back to back. And at that time, that was, I still got a money clip, and it says Duke football, 1981 winners. And I cherish that almost as much as some of these championship money clips or things like that we have, because that was that gave me hope. I had a chance to be a coach. And then the USFL started in '83, and I got a chance to be the head coach down there and so forth. But no, I didn't plan on being a coach. I didn't plan on anything. I was sort of a happy-go-lucky guy, come to Gainesville in the off-season, play a lot of golf out at the country club, and go to the beach with Jerry and the kids a lot, maybe on Sundays and things like that. So I was just blessed to have those opportunities. And you got to have a good wife to take you through that coaching trips, and Jerry certainly was the best. I know Bobby Stoops said his wife Carol trained none of the best head coaching wife in America, and that was Jerry Spurrier. So she's big credit for everything that's happened to me, that's for sure.
No doubt about it. Coach, there was an article written in the Gainesville Sun about the struggle of third-year Gator coaches in football, talking about how they're pretty average. We weren't great in your third year, but we still won 9 games.
Yeah, I tell you, Robbie, I don't know, Robbie, I think you sort of realized that wasn't much of a dip. Talent-wise, we weren't near quite what we had the first couple of years. But that 92 team, I think, achieved almost maybe as much as any of them, really did. I know we had 2 freshman offensive tackles, Reggie Green and Jason Odom, and several other young guys all over the place that year. And to win the division, beat Georgia 26-24. That's probably my favorite Georgia game, was that one, because that same day Tennessee lost at South Carolina, and we won the division. Well, the next week when we had to beat Vandy, but that put us in position for the first ever SEC championship game. But anyway, yeah, that was that was how that 92 team won a bowl game, which was, as a coach, my first one ever. And I tell you, it's interesting looking at the bowl records of all these coaches. Fortunately, South Carolina, we won 4 in a row, and I'm 1 game up on bowls. I'm only 11-10 in bowl games. So most bowl games are all 50-50. It's pretty evenly divided, and the records of coaches is sort of interesting when you look at all of the bowl games and so forth.
Coach, we got a question here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. It comes from Reginald. He says, coming into Florida, what was your thought of the talent and depth that was on campus when you got here?
Well, Shane, coming out of Duke University and winning that ACC in '89 was extremely important to coming to Florida with the 90 team and the 91 team and so forth. And I remember one time our buddy Steve Russell said that you didn't really expect to win the SEC your first year, did you? And I said, Steve, if we hadn't expected to win, it wouldn't have happened accidentally. No, that was the goal. As you know, our goal was to win the SEC, win the first one ever. And the players, as a coach, you have to get your players to simply believe they're good enough to achieve this. And we were good enough to achieve it. Now, according to the recruiting rankings, now this came out of a Georgia newspaper, the 90-91 overall recruiting class, we were actually 5th in the SEC. They had Georgia, I think, number 1, and then Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee were right there. And then we were actually 5th. Now, that doesn't mean those guys were more talented than us. That's just what the rankings were, because we had ball players all over the place. And I told you guys, I said, we got the players here to do it. We got the players here to win. And I think Florida needed a coach to tell the guys, you're good enough to do it. And if we don't do it, we got no one to blame but ourselves. There's no bad luck. There's no wait till next year. There's no curses. It's all on us. Let's prepare. Let's get ready to play the best we can every week. And we've got a chance to be champions.
Coach, everybody knows how you kind of revolutionized SEC when you came in and probably basically college football. And there's been a clip going around on Twitter that I saw yesterday, and I thought it was very interesting. It's from the Citrus Bowl when we played Penn State. We're in tech right, or it could have been tech left. You fake the be quick, hand off 34 base to Fred Taylor, but then you fake the reverse to Travis McGriff. So Kwesi comes in motion, you fake the be quick, hand it off to Fred Taylor, and fake the reverse to Travis McGriff. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because everybody thinks that Sean McVay and the Rams made up all these, you know, how they fake the be quick and all that stuff. This stuff was being done back in the 90s. I just thought it was cool that that's all over Twitter right now.
Yeah, Jack Jackson could run that quick play pretty well. I remember that. And, yeah, we used those kind of things a bit back in those days, but mostly with the quarterback under center instead of that little flip. You know, the guy coming across and you flip it to him. We just handed it to him, and then sometimes, of course, faked it to him. And of course, Kwesi Green, we ran the be quick at Auburn in '97, and Kwesi threw a touchdown pass. I don't know if it was Jamie Richardson or who caught it. But Kwesi, that day at Auburn, he ran for a touchdown, caught a touchdown pass, and threw a touchdown pass. So that was a good day for Kwesi Green. He was one of our best too.
No doubt about it. We got a text here on the Titan MR text line from Shelly. She wants to know, what was the most difficult player, I don't know if she's phrasing this right, most difficult and y'all spent the most time on when you were recruiting here, but you still landed the player? I guess she's saying, who did y'all really focus on and put a lot of effort into, but it was difficult, but he ended up being a Gator? Is there one player?
Well, you can only spend almost the same amount of time on everyone. You only have like one home visit. They take one official visit and things of that nature. So as far as time spent on guys, it's pretty similar all the time. But I remember, well, might as well talk about Danny Warfel. Danny Heisman, 4 SECs international. We're recruiting him. In fact, I was sitting in the stands at the Swamp when his high school, Fort Walton Beach, beat St. Thomas Aquinas for the state championship. And I'm watching him warm up before the game. And I remember John Reeves was sitting with me, and I said, John, his throwing motion looks a little funky. He drops the ball behind his head and sort of shot puts it out. Well, when the game started, he didn't throw like that. When the game started, every pass was right on the money. He had a quick release. And then Danny ran a little option play, and he went like 82 yards for a touchdown and outran both of the safeties for St. Thomas Aquinas. In fact, George Smith, the coach at St. Thomas, talked to me later about it. He said, Coach, I'm standing there watching. My two safeties played in the NFL 6-7 years, and he's outrunning both of them. I couldn't believe it. Something's going on here I don't know about. And I said, I was sitting there watching the same thing, George. I was up in the stands that day because they allowed us to watch the championship. So anyway, we were recruiting 3 quarterbacks. We'd already had Eric Kressler. Kressler wanted to come, and he was sort of unfortunate that Danny and he were the same age. And then Danny Cannell committed to FSU, which sort of opened the gates for Danny Warfel to come here. But after I watched that state championship game that Danny Warfel beat those guys, I said, man, if we can get Danny Warfel as a Florida Gator, good times are going to be ahead for all of us. Good times again. Of course, you'd already won a couple of championships yourself. And in fact, Danny was redshirted that 92 year.
Yeah.
So in fact, you helped us recruit Danny.
I did.
I remember on the visit. Yeah, you were with him quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that was an important recruit right there. And then history shows the rest of what happened after that.
No doubt about it. Coach, how often do you get to talk to Urban? Y'all two are the only ones that win national titles here. Do you speak with Urban often?
Coach Urban called me the other day. He's got a place, I think, down at Siesta Key near Sarasota. And I think he was having dinner at his place with a couple of Gators or something and had called, and I didn't pick up Saturday night. So I called him back yesterday, actually Sunday, and we talked a little bit. Coach Urban, I tell you what, he and I get along super. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but in 2006 or 7, he wrote me a letter. He's here at Florida. We beat him once. He beat us that 1-point game here and so forth. And he said it was really a nice letter just saying, boy, I admire what you did here, and I can see your work all around this place. I see the attitudes of people and this, that, and the other. It's really one of the nicest letters an opponent coach had ever written to me. But we got a lot in common. We got a whole lot in common. That's called University of Florida, Florida Gators, and trying to be the best you can be and so forth. Yeah, I hope real soon the people that are in charge of the Ring of Honor will put Coach Urban in there. I guess right now he and I only have the SEC and the national championships, us two coaches. So he certainly deserves to be in it. And hopefully we can get him back around a little bit.
Coach, we got a couple more things here, and we appreciate your time today on the Titan MR hotline. We got a Facebook Live brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. Gary says, Coach, how did you feel playing your first game against the Gators as a South Carolina coach in the Swamp?
In the Swamp? Well, actually, I'm not a real sentimental type guy about a lot of stuff. And plus, I was the offensive coordinator. I was calling the plays. So you don't come to a ballpark and look around and say, oh, man, I remember this game. I remember that game. No, I was just trying to concentrate on sending in the best plays I could for our quarterback and so forth. And then we did win one, which was the only one South Carolina's ever won in the Swamp in 2010. And in fact, that was Coach Urban's last game in the Swamp. And I think in 2014, that might have been Muschamp's last game. The last was against South Carolina. So here's what's ironic. As a coach at Florida, we lost our last game in the Swamp against Tennessee. And as an opponent coach, I won my last game in the Swamp against Florida. Sort of interesting how history turns out events such as that. But anyway, I tried not to think so much about prior games and events, and certainly on the other sideline over there was strange a little bit instead of the home sideline. But just trying to concentrate on the ball plays.
We got a text here from Franklin. He says, Coach, is there one game in your entire career that you lost that you wish you could go back and coach again?
The one that would jump at me would be the Tennessee game. We lost 34-32 in 2001. That 2001 team with Rex Grossman and all those guys. It was one of the best in school history. It really was. I tell everybody we finished third in the nation and didn't win a dang thing. Didn't win the division, didn't win the SEC. Won the Orange Bowl, I guess. Finished third in the nation. But that was got to be 34-32. They ran the ball down our throat. I don't know what happened to us defensively that night because we came in number one in the SEC in defense, 2001 team. And offensively, we were number one. But it's one of those games we went up and down the field and had to kick a bunch of little old field goals. We just sputtered around the 3-4 yard line. And then we scored and went for two. And when Rex started scrambling, we had that 97 outhouse called. And he started scrambling. I said, oh, gosh. And they could have called interference, but they didn't. And we got beat 34-32. And that was a team that could have won it all. It really was. Mm-hmm. We'd beaten LSU, Saban at LSU, I think 44-15. And they came back and won the division and beat Tennessee in the championship game. I think maybe Coach Fulmer let his guys celebrate a little too much after beating the Gators. And LSU beat them in Atlanta the next week.
Final question for you, Coach. Joe on the Titan MR text line wants to know, how's the restaurant coming along? Yeah, the restaurant's on pace. I guess we ought to be sort of glad we're not open right now because this is not a time for any restaurants, as we know. But we're shooting for around November the 1st, shooting around late October, early November, something like that. But Fred Wiebe, our general manager of the project, he says everything's on schedule. So we got to get these times back to normal. I think that's what we all need to concentrate on right now. And then hopefully if we all do our part, football season can be here in August, September. We're ready to go. All right, Coach. Well, we appreciate you joining the program. Right. Stay safe. And all right, Shane. Enjoy listening to you every now and then. And glad to be on your show. All right. Coach. See ya. Coach Steve Spurrier joining us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to take our final time out of the program. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Coldstone Creamery, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank,
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We'll see you at Celebration Point where the Gators come to celebrate. We want to thank all our sponsors for helping us keep this program afloat. I want to thank Joe Cowart and Steve Spurrier for joining the program today. Tomorrow's guest will be Cowart Ratliff, former Gator defensive back, who did a little bit of everything for the Gators, also now on Coach Dan Mullen's staff, part of the player personnel department. But, we also want to thank Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. They sponsor Jackie Spreads, who's currently on leave because doesn't have a whole lot going on right now with no sports. But it was a good show today. I thought Coach Spurrier, he could talk for hours, but we had to let him go. And again, tomorrow, Cowart Ratliff. So make sure you get your text, your Facebook Live comments in for Cowart. He was a longtime NFL guy, was in the Orlando area doing 7-on-7 teams, and then Dan Mullen hired him. He's done a tremendous job in the recruiting department, player personnel for the Gators since Dan Mullen's gotten here. So that was going to be a wrap for today's show. Please join us tomorrow. And I want to say on Wednesday is going to be Andy Staples. Thursday's program will have Jerry Odom, former Gator, now coach at Tusculum College. And on Friday, we got a very, very special guest. I'm not going to announce right now, but people will love to listen to him, and you'll make sure you need to tune in. So that's it for today's program. You've been listening and watching Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.